Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's session. Here's my question as we kick off today's webinar is, imagine transforming the way you manage your tech infrastructure, embracing agility of the cloud while keeping the power in your own premises. Welcome to the future, or actually, no, welcome to a future where financial flexibility, operational efficiency, and scalability aren't just possible. We're your new reality right now is X as a service. So hello, everybody. My name is Z Tinoco. I will be your host today in today's session, and we're going to talk about X as a service, your on-prem infrastructure, cloud-like consumption solution session. So with that, let's go ahead and introduce our specialist today. So first, I'll introduce Kent Christensen, Practice Director with Insight, and Tyler Pfeiffer, Director of X as a Service and Strategic Partner Alliance with Insight. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having us here, Z.
Great, and good to be here.
Awesome. Well, Kent, if you don't mind just doing a quick introduction, tell us about what is a practice director and what do you do for Insight?
Well, a practice director does create solutions and things. So it's in the cloud and data center and helps put together solutions that have, high value to our clients. Many times combining multiple partners, many times unique go-to-market. So very topic for today, taking integrated solutions and going to market through potentially X as a service.
Right on, Kent. And Tyler, how about yourself?
So actually a little less than a year ago, we actually created this X as a service role within our partner alliance organization. And it's more of a vertical focus across our major brands that we partner with on an as a service offering. So we work very closely with our internal stakeholders, like our portfolio teams that develop these offers, and we work in conjunction with our partners, as their programs evolve and change, and we provide feedback to, what we're hearing from clients on how to make these things work a little bit better, move a little bit smoother, and really just try and build a strong relationship and practice around the as a service offerings, and ultimately bring those to our clients to deliver value.
All right, excellent. So just to make sure we have good audio experience, we'll make sure that we put ourselves on mute when not discussing, and then of course unmute ourselves. But thank you everybody for joining in today's session. So just to kind of give you a lay of the land, today we're going to of course talk about this topic, right? X as a service. We're going to talk about consumption-based pricing, how it works, X as a service financial flexibility, and cloud alignment. Finally, managed services for operational efficiency. So quite a bit that we're going to unpack here, but we'll take it one step at a time. And we look forward to providing you some valuable information. So with that, I'll pass it on to Tyler. Tyler, tell our folks a little bit about who we are as an Insight and what we can do for them.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of you that are unaware, Insight's been around for over 35 years now, and we're on a transformation journey of our own, right? Most organizations are looking at how they're going to transform and continue to stay relevant, both now and into the future. And we're kind of on our own journey here as well with kind of taking that legacy resale motion of product, hardware, software, but then also combining it with all of the investments we've made over the last, call it decade, to build out our services and delivery capabilities. So really bringing those two different powerhouses together, if you will, to deliver on, really what we see as a solutions integrator, right? Not necessarily a systems integrator or just, being a transactional engine for your product needs. But really being that trusted advisor and coming in and understanding what outcomes, our clients are looking to drive and build, a full end-to-end solution that, we would look to deliver and manage in a long-term state. But our goal here is really just to make sure that we're listening to our clients, understanding their problems, and helping them through whether it's getting up to date on their technology, modernizing their applications for the cloud, making sure they've got a resilient security practice, right? Data breaches is one of those things that we hear about all the time. how do we continue to make sure we've got that resiliency there? So ultimately looking at a client's overall technology stack and how we can pull all of the capabilities Insight has to bear and deliver outcomes.
So Tyler, what I love what you're sharing here as I'm hearing you is that honestly, this has always been part of our Insight DNA. It's just that we're always on top of the latest trends and what's important to our clients, right? So that is constantly changing in the fact that we have to have that pulse of what is going on in the marketplace. What are some pain points? What is going on, and make sure that we can help and provide and be there for our clients. And as we know, right, that's never changing. It's always something's coming up, something new, right?
The only thing that's constant is change, right? And we at Insight definitely are aware of that, right? You know, whether it's making sure we've got a right alignment with our capabilities or our resources for our clients, but we're constantly evolving, and we want to take a lot of the experience that we learn on how to evolve a large organization, and how do we use some of those practices with our clients as well, right?
Yeah. And it's something that isn't new. We've always been global, but I think more than ever, we're really starting to expand even more and have a bigger presence in the marketplace, not just in North America, correct?
Yeah. So when you look at our reach, right, and I hate to use the word global, right? Because when somebody hears the word global, the first question is, hey, can you do something in this country? And it's usually a country that we probably don't have a presence in. You know, so we're really looking at this as a multinational organization, but we do have a very, very large reach, right? Can we go deliver something, say, in Somalia? Probably not. But we do have a very large reach, both with our own global offices across, obviously, North America, EMEA, and the APAC regions. But we also have a network of partners that we work with to help deliver some of these outcomes for us as well.
Yeah. And then, you know, with as we continue to grow as an organization, right, with acquisitions, you know, one exciting one, SADA,
Right.
has also helped us expand, you know, in some regions that we haven't been to. So who knows, right? In the future, some of those areas that, like you said, not yet or not currently, but you never know. You know, that is always a possibility in the future.
So I mean, you can see that there's a big reach here. We're a fairly large organization. We've been doing this for over 35 years. The amount of investments we've made into the acquisitions like SADA or DataLink or Cardinal or Blue Metal have been a way to ensure that we continue on this journey we've been on for solutions integrator, right? So, so if you've got questions on that, feel free to throw them in the chat. But I'll toss it over to Kent to kind of talk through how we deliver on multi-cloud platforms.
Great, thanks, Tyler. So kind of zeroing in, because Insight does so many things, kind of zero in on the topic. We're really talking about, you know, our long history of being a multi-cloud, multi-platform systems integrator. Here is a sampling of partners. Many of them are sponsoring this webinar because they trust us to put these things together. And what do we mean by systems integration? You can go to the shopping mall of technology and go logo by logo and ask what they do, and will absolutely tell you what they do. What a systems integrator does is helps you figure out how they work together and how they work together specifically to meet what you're trying to accomplish. So you can kind of look and say, I want to do, you know, support certain types of workloads in a hybrid cloud environment, et cetera. And then we can make recommendations based on investments you have. So some of these partners may be ones that you're already invested in for compute, network, storage, you know, cloud, et cetera, and help put them together. And we think we have a unique perspective, and, you know, not the one throat to choke, but the one back to pat that says, okay, who's ultimately responsible for me meeting my goals? And so, you know, that has actually been something that we've done for many, many, many years. We have, you know, as Tyler is well aware, awesome partnerships with these and other very strategic partners. And what's new today is you don't just have to go and buy it, even if it's systems integrated, and pay up front, but you can actually consume it in a cloud-like experience. So that'll be the focus today. And Tyler, I think, one of the things we've been doing is we were into this early with many of those partners. And, we can see why we think the industry and what we're seeing directly, but what we see analysts kind of reflecting on the growth of this.
Yeah, and I think, if we go back in the way back machine, right, 4 or 5 years ago when we started looking at consumption models for on-prem infrastructure, I don't think the market was necessarily ready for it, right, or understood it. And as we kind of fast forward to today, I mean, you can see some of the stats up here. I won't read all of them off to you, but when you have clients that say, "Hey, I'm a cloud first strategy," that's okay, right? But what we know, right, is 80% of the world's data is still on-prem, right? And 90% of that data isn't even being used, right? So I'm not going to go into the Gen AI topic because we don't have time for that, right? But that data in a Gen AI world becomes much more valuable moving forward, right? So how do you leverage that data, right? How are you using it to really build and take advantage of context into those large language models, right? But when you look at the increase, I mean, all of these are significant increases over a year, 2 to 3 years. And it's looking at our on-prem infrastructure, right? If you look at IDC, by this year, 75% of infrastructure is going to be at the edge, right? And will be consumed or operated in an as-a-service model. Okay, so that's pushing out your data to the edge, right? But ultimately, we're going to see significant growth here, right? Z mentioned this earlier, right? Staying on top of trends, right? So how do we make sure we've got the right practice to support our clients and our partners that are looking to move into a consumption model for on-prem?
That's great. And I think if you were reading the 1-point font at the bottom, you saw a lot of 22, 23. And so we're not telling them to read that. But if you start looking, this is kind of fresh off the press. So we are seeing the growth, but here's the reality. This is new. And, while we can all say if you stand still, you'll be obsoleted. And I think most organizations, especially with, just even this week's announcements on AI, realize they need to continue to evolve, et cetera. We have had a lot of experience over the last few years of going into enterprises that have their set processes, have their set investments. Maybe they're suffering with, as Z pointed out, technical debt, and they're trying to figure out what to do. But fresh off the press, we're seeing some of the analysts say, hey, this is coming. And if you look at, 50% of all the infrastructure is going to be replaced by 2028. 90% of all consumption by 2030 will be this way. So you can wait until it's obvious, or, we think we're in a great position to talk about what X as a service is and determine at what point does this make sense to integrate into your organization. But what the statistics are showing is that almost everybody will find a great use for this. So
I can't help there, Ken, when you're saying this, is like, it's interesting enough that when it comes to anything that, is coming, that we're forecasting for, right? This is the trend, it's accelerating. It all depends on the organization, individuals, how we approach it, right? There's some that could be the innovators, right? The early adapters, and jump right on and kind of work the kinks and really have it down, or the late majority or the laggards that are just going to wait until they have no choice. And the question is, where do you see yourself in this transition? And look at historics as well, right? The laggards or the majority, it's going to, you're falling behind, right? You're kind of like trying to pick things up where you can, depending on where you stand on that. So talking about that, Ken, what are your thoughts on those different levels of, people embracing, this new thing?
Any large organization, it just takes one veto to slow things down. It's new, and they probably know what cloud is because somebody sold a very large contract and and they had the boardroom and everybody better get on board. They absolutely know how to buy things through the CapEx model because that's what they've done for the last 30 years. So this is new, and we'll kind of go in and describe it to them. And so what we have seen is the number of logos and clients of logos everybody will recognize, et cetera, that have adopted this. Nobody has ever stopped. And so, yes, it's kind of hard to take that step into something that's new and maybe a little bit foreign, even though we don't think it's that complicated because we live in this world. But we do start to see that everybody who does then says, oh, well, if I did storage, I want to do compute. Now I want to add network. Hey, I'm going to expand into this division, et cetera. So the analysts are just reflecting what we're seeing. This is coming. It's growing. We're probably in that hockey stick point where it's starting to really, really accelerate. And, you know, by no means is this goal to say everybody needs to do this. Really, what we want to do is educate through this medium and others to the client of what is this? How does it fit in with your strategy? You'll determine when and where to put it, but we're confident that we're in a great position to deliver it.
Yeah, it's another option, right, Kent? I mean, you can go CapEx, you can go through the cloud, but you know, to your point, we want to make sure that our clients are aware that there are other options on how to consume their on-prem tech, right?
Yep. So here's an example, and let's just briefly describe what it is. So I think everybody understands the CapEx model. And you do the CapEx model in data center acquisition, but you do the CapEx model in real life. So let's pretend you're going to buy a house and you have the greatest architect, i.e. integrator in the world working with you, but you only know what you know right now. And so you plan, you build, you build exactly what you need. But as time goes on, your needs might change, especially in today's world where, you know, I don't know what the economy is going to be in 6 months, let alone 3 years. And that's how they're planning in 3 to 5 year shifts of a very dynamic world. Once you own something like a house or a bunch of data center infrastructure and you decide, boy, if I knew now what I knew, or I knew then what I know now, I would have done something different. It's really difficult to change. Once you own it, you kind of own it and think of it as being somewhat rigid. Doing a lease doesn't change the fact that what you own is rigid. It just determines how you're going to pay for it. But you still have a very, you know, static, rigid environment that is very difficult to change. On the far right, cloud solved all that. So really, cloud is absolutely fabulous if you're starting something. Probably a lot of AI starts in cloud. New startups start in cloud. Hey, I don't know if I'm going to grow 1%, 10%, or 10,000%. But cloud's there no matter what. I can start as little as unit 1. I can expand. I can contract. I just pay for what I use. So what's as a service, it really kind of plugs that gap that says, well, what's a good part about cloud? It's the flexibility. It's the pay for it as I use it. It's the pay for exactly what I use, not more because I didn't budget right, et cetera. With the familiarity and not taking your applications and trying to put them into a form environment. Some people say it's almost like we're bringing cloud to you on your terms, wherever you want it. So that's a high level. We've worked with many clients, as we mentioned. We could summarize, well, what is it that made them take this leap? Some of them are looking at their cloud strategy, et cetera, and say, I like that idea. I like to pay for what I use as I use it. That makes more sense than paying for what I think I might use. Almost everybody on their first pass at this says, help me understand the financial model. Is it less expensive? Many times it is because you're paying for just what you use as you use it. But many people are looking at it sometimes just through a financial lens. Many, and we're going to give multiple examples, are saying, hey, this is actually complementary to my cloud strategy. Sometimes we call it the bridge. We're thinking about moving X to the cloud in Y amount of time. Okay, great. As you're figuring out how and when, you can put it on a consumption model and you can determine if and when you would move something to the cloud. We find that plenty of people are using that bridge to come back from the cloud, et cetera. So because it aligns to a cloud strategy, which we'll talk about a little bit here, it helps them align to that. And at the other end of the day, and we'll talk a little bit about what's the perfect time to look at this, it's when you have a big choice to make. Hey, we're under a mandate to move a lot of stuff to cloud. Hey, I've got a bunch of technical debt. I need to figure out what the next step is. Do I buy more? Do I wait? Do I extend, support, et cetera? And we find that no matter how you use this to look at this decision, All of these kind of reduce risk from the solution, that you're considering. So just generalizing, and I think many clients might, we talk to clients all the time, and sometimes the first thing is, my strategy is on-prem. We have issues with cloud because of compliance and regulation, et cetera. There could be any reason. So they're primarily on-prem. Or they might be, hey, we've got a mandate to do public cloud, and we're absolutely cloud first. And what we find is that's kind of this bifurcated, it's one or the other. And what we do believe is X as a service makes it an and, so that I'm probably doing some on-prem, I'm probably doing some software as a service, I'm probably doing some public cloud, and I have this option of putting cloud-like experience onto infrastructure that I can manage or I can host. And so that really, really expands the discussion from either on the prem or in public cloud to a broader discussion. So
Ken,
why don't you summarize a question for us?
So Ken, I actually have a follow-up here for you, because as you're sharing this, I'm kind of putting my leadership lens here. And, I think it's one of those things where a lot of organizations, companies, individuals are probably thinking, okay, it's not a one size fits all, right? Every organization has their own strategy and their own, whatever direction, the list goes on. But from the leadership lens, it's like one of those things that, we're like, I don't know what to do next or where to take this. One of the things we talk about a lot is have your own personal board of directors or consultants or people that you trust, mentors, coaches. How does Insight fall in this space, right? Because yes, you can consult with your colleagues. Maybe you're working with other organizations that are maybe similar to your strategy. But how does Insight fall into this conversation when you're trying to figure out where we're at and what should we do? What are our options?
I think that's a great question. There's two parts to it. One of them is, if I could cookie cutter this, we would just sell it on our website. It really needs, the concept of systems integration is saying we've got all these great technologies. We need to customize it to what you need. What are your goals? What are your objectives? How do we, adjust what infrastructure we provide? And the same goes true with an X as a service model. Okay, are you a CapEx oriented company? Are you a cloud first company? What's your view on consumption versus, a CapEx type of model? What is your strategy toward, one of the things people realize is, oh my gosh, you mean my costs directly are directly related to my consumption? In other words, if I have customers consuming, my costs are directly linked, not predicted, et cetera. And so as you go through that with them, we're saying, let me understand your business model, let me understand your goals, let me understand your financial objectives, et cetera, and let's see how this fits. And then you decide if this is the best choice. Because we didn't take away going to cloud, and we didn't take away CapEx. We just gave you a third option.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, different lens. Sometimes when we're in our own world, right, we see things a certain way, but it's really nice to have somebody, coming from the outside to ask us some questions, right? Kind of dive into these type of discussions to then allow us to see things differently and maybe find out there's a better way than what we've been doing, which is great. All right. Well, I know we have a poll question we want to ask here for everybody who's on. Once again, I want to remind everybody in the session, you're more than welcome to ask any questions as we continue. But here is my question, and it's coming up now. There it is. What is your cloud strategy? So you can select just by selecting the actual A, B, C, or D. Is it only software services, infrastructure, in DC, public cloud only, one cloud, multiple cloud, or multiple public cloud providers, and hybrid between private and public cloud? So go ahead and select your option there. If you are, working with Insight as well, just talk about like the clients that you have. What are you seeing as well? So Ken, why is this a question that we ask? What's the purpose of us asking this question, Ken?
Well, I think we talked about it. Everybody has some cloud, ADP, HR apps, Salesforce. Those are all examples of software as a service. But many companies say, I'm cloud first and might be one cloud. Some of them say, hey, hybrid means multiple clouds. And the fourth option is, and I guess we're giving away, our view is there is no one cloud. You're probably going to use multiple clouds, and it may not just be all public. And so, I don't want to say the correct answer is D, but that's where we're coming from.
Well, I haven't closed it yet, Ken, so people are waiting for that. You just gave the answer.
I'm skewing the results.
All right, last caller. Go ahead and just select which one applies to you, your strategy, and then we'll go ahead and reveal the results here in a few seconds. So Tyler, how about yourself? When you think about this question, I know that Kent already shared his thoughts and views. What are your thoughts and views on these possible answers we might get?
So I think for me, most people and organizations are probably going to be in some hybrid state, right? They're going to have their on-prem infrastructure, and they're going to have at least one cloud provider, right? Whether that's, AWS or GCP or Azure, right? But what we're going to start to see moving forward, right, is a kind of a standard of hybrid multi-cloud, right? I might have GCP and Azure in my environment, and I might have some data governance requirements related to my on-prem data, where I've got to house that data there, right? If you're in the financial or healthcare verticals, right, there are requirements on security and where that data is housed, right? So I think naturally we're going to find a balance between public cloud and private cloud, right? Private cloud being your on-prem infrastructure. I think there was a pendulum shift to public cloud when it came out, and everybody kind of jumped to the shiny ball, if you will. And then they got their bill a year later and they were like, whoa, that's really expensive, right? So now we're starting to see the shift maybe to say, what are the right workloads to put on the public cloud? What are the right workloads to run within my own walls, right? And striking that balance between, your SLAs, your latencies, and your requirements from a business perspective with your financial objectives, right?
Yeah.
So for me, I think there'll be a natural settling of organizations' take on what makes sense for them. But I think whether it's 10% on-prem, 90% cloud, I think there will be some mix of the two.
All right, I think we've given plenty of time to answer. So let's see if your predictions were there. I'm curious. So, no, did anybody answer? That's the question. I think that's the thing. Everybody's like, I'm afraid to click on the thing. So, I mean, I guess we kind of predicted the hybrid between. So hopefully that's the case for most. I don't know if anybody saw the option there, but
I imagine there's an error because at least somebody voted, because I know we did. So there might be trouble collecting the results. So maybe we'll just move on.
Probably user error on mine. I don't know what I clicked. I had to click something. All right. Well, again, I'm sure that those were the results that would have come out. So we're going to go ahead to Tyler. Go ahead and Tyler and go to the next topic for us.
Yeah. So, right, when we talk about our X as a service portfolio, right, and again, keeping this in the mindset of your on-prem compute, storage, and networking, you kind of see the big hitters here, right? From NetApp's Keystone and Pure Storage's Evergreen One, right? Predominantly focused in that storage space, along with Cisco and their compute and networking as a service. And then you've got what we kind of call portfolio companies like HPE GreenLakes and Dell Apex that kind of cover the gamut between compute, storage, and networking, right? Same thing with Lenovo, right? They've got a very strong compute message, very strong on the storage side as well. Up and comers, right, from a market share perspective, but definitely up and comers force to be reckoned with Lenovo. So while this is not a static view of our portfolio in the long run, it is our portfolio as of today, and we're constantly evaluating and providing feedback to other providers that want to launch their own as a service offering, and really what we see kind of best practices using our lens of the channel, if you will.
Yeah.
Awesome. That kind of transitions to our view of the world, right? So what we're saying is, and I think you'll see at the end that a lot of these logos are sponsoring, i.e., I trust Insight to represent my technology and my X as a service approach in a go-to-market systems integrated approach. That they've actually sponsored for us to have this discussion, and you notice they might be listening, but they're not telling you. Now, if you were to call up, and this is just the way any company, if you call a car company or you call anybody and you ask them, how does your product work? They're awesome. They know exactly how their product works. If you ask them how other people, they really want to be the center of attention. So if you really call anybody, especially maybe some of the portfolio companies, they would say, well, kind of, let's not worry about these other logos. Our role is to help you understand which of these are important investments to you. Tyler pointed out, Cisco's a networking powerhouse. Many of these are storage. Lenovo's got a really unique and additive approach to maybe some of the storage people about how they view compute, including things like NVIDIA, et cetera. What's my cloud provider? Where will I put it? Equinix is an example. And so our role is to go in and say, what's important to you, help you systems integrate this into a solution that meets what you're trying to go, where are your investments, how does this align to your strategy, make recommendations and bring those partners in.
Yeah. So really what I'm seeing here is that this X as a service is an integrated, it's like a complete system. I mean, it really just kind of brings the best of the best all together to.
It really is. And if you think about, somebody that sells storage, they can't actually run a workload unless they have compute and network. And so the individuals sometimes need somebody to put this together, and they have services to try to say, hey, we got partnerships here and here. We're very client focused, right? And say, hey, Mr. Customer, it's not really about exactly who they want to work with or who they own, et cetera, but it's what do you own? We can help you put this together, systems integrate it, make sure it works, support it, and grow it.
And put it all on a single contract for our clients, right? So you can have a multi-OEM contract. You're not going to be looking at 3-4 different contracts in a mixed OEM environment. We can consolidate that into a single contract for you as well.
Much more simplified, yes.
I can't help but think of, like just us themselves as consumers of just everyday stuff, right? Like, I don't know, streaming services. I mean, there's even now services or apps out there that help you basically get that single point of glass of where are you putting on your money towards right now? Because we just lose track of things. It just comes out of our bill and we forget, and you realize, wait, I still have that? What? Or I'm paying twice for that? These type of things. I think that really is a huge value add, right? Is somebody there that it's all in one place and we don't have to be always on.
That's a good analogy. In a way, it's like you don't have to take a streaming package from one company and figure out how that, overlaps or something with a cable package, et cetera. And you don't have to play by the traditional rules of this box does this and this box does that, because those are hardware rules. What we're really doing, and we'll transition to how does this work, we're saying, what if I could build exactly what you want? You're going to get a system that actually is focused on what you need, not what they sell in different big size, big, middle, small, fast, slow, et cetera. But what do you need? And we're essentially helping you customize a solution. A contract is what it is, so that you just pay for what you're using as you use it. So that's the part that people are like, wait a minute, I don't understand how this is possible. I'm used to, the X5000 box or, et cetera. It's like, you don't actually have to worry about whether it's on that box or not. It may be, absolutely, you'll understand the technology supporting it, but it will be customized to what you need.
Yeah, they can simply say, I just need this SLA for my storage, right, Kent? And that's how we price it, right? And that's what's guaranteed. Yeah.
And that's a perfect transition. So how does it work? So anytime you consume anything as a service, there's some unit of measurement. In our example, a cable channel, a cell phone minute, a mile driven, or whatever it is. So in the technology infrastructure world, there's storage. In storage, you usually measure it by how much storage do I need, a capacity. That's measured in a terabyte. But storage has multiple temperatures. So you can have, you always hear about the really cheap storage, i.e. the high capacity, it could store things for a long time. You may hear about the super, super fast stuff that runs your most important AI workloads, and the ones in between. I want this, really fast, but not super turbo fast. And I want kind of standard, the stuff I use every day. And there's significant price differences when you look at the rates between, capacity, standard, premium, and super extreme. And so we're customizing that. That's the unit of measurement is a terabyte and a service level. Now in compute, it's usually cores, how many cores, i.e. it's a division of processors, how much memory, how many GPUs, or how many VMs am I running, et cetera. And so those are the measurements. And then networking, you can imagine it's ports of a certain type, et cetera. So you really just have a unit of measurement. Now, when you buy things, many times you end up buying more than you need, especially in storage. With almost every X as a service, and we're describing how they all work, not how each one works, but they all work in a general concept, which makes it easier. So you get a rate, and then there's some, you say, okay, I commit to 80. I would have bought 100 and something just to be sure. And you say, well, you don't need to buy that. You're always going to get 20 or 30% extra just sitting there, but you don't pay for it unless you use it. So it's really set to help you grow. Many of them allow you to drop. There's terms, right? So how many units, what type, I get extra sitting there. What's my term? You can imagine a 5-year term is lower price per unit. A 1-year term that storage providers will do is probably higher per unit. And then you figure out which fits to you, et cetera. In every case, the OEM is going to retain the title. So in other words, when you buy something and you own something, you put it on your books. In this case, when you use cloud, you don't actually put anything in your books. You don't actually take title of any infrastructure you're using. This is the same way. Even though it may be brought to your premises or to your hosting facility, it's dedicated to you. You actually don't put it on your books. The OEM is taking the title. The OEM is taking, some amount of risk that you'll use, what you commit to, et cetera. And then as Tyler's going to talk about a little bit later, we can add various levels of services from just do it. I'm going to manage it the way I'm always used to, or I want you to take a more active role. And when we add that to an X as a service, it tends to be, less expensive because it's integrated into a system.
And Kent, real quick, Kent, there's one thing I just wanted to call out on that slide. When you talk about the terms of, 1 to 5 years, okay? When we set a price per that unit of measure you were speaking to, Kent, to say, okay, for this terabyte at this SLA for storage, that price is fixed for that term of 5 years. So let's say you need to add more storage in 2 years. The price we quoted you when you initially signed up for that SLA and that amount of storage is the same price you're going to pay, if not less, depending on your level of commit. So you are literally getting a rate card to cover your storage, compute, or networking devices for the term. Now, I don't know about you, Kent, but if I took a quote of a server and gave it to a client and said, come back to me in 5 years and I'll honor that price, that just would not happen in today's world. But now you look at it from how we're offering these, the OEM's retaining title, we're holding that price and we're holding it static so that and you can plan for what those expenses and costs are going to look like as you need to expand your environment.
That's excellent. So I guess the next transition is how do we transform or start planning?
I gotta cut you off.
So yeah, Kent, you were going to go into transformation and planning. So that's probably the question.
Yeah, sorry. I tell you what, in this so that was awesome. Tyler's an awesome straight man and led us right into the next topic about the predictability. So when you look at cloud, you know what it costs. When you used to go buy a used car, you were always guessing and trying to negotiate. And transparency is one of the things this is bringing. So while everybody's saying, you know what, I'm not sure exactly how my business model and things are going to change, I kind of know what I got to do. That's exactly what, as Tyler was pointing out, that you're going to get a transparent model where you get, what it costs. We find that incredibly powerful for organizations when we say, oh, here's the rates for servers and compute and storage, et cetera, that they on their own go, oh my gosh, now that I know that, I can actually plan things that we weren't even talking about. So one of the things we want to point out when we look at this is there's a temptation to say, oh, well, just tell me how much it is. And so the temptation is to say, just give me a quote. And what we say is, well, we can do that. Actually, a better question would be, let us ask you a couple more questions and then we'll give you a proposal. And so let's take the example of storage. Somebody says, well, I was going to buy 500 terabytes of whatever. And can you give me a quote for 500 terabytes? And we simply say, well, you were going to buy 500 terabytes. Let's talk about why. Well, you know, you're actually using about 375. Well, yeah, I got to buy extra. You know that. Oh, okay. And then it looks like you bought the Primo box, right? Because he's like, well, yeah, I've got some workloads that require the Primo. It's like, well, you know what? Actually, half your workloads are idle. And so if we actually split this up to say, I'm really going to give you the 375, which you need, and I'm going to divide it between the ones that really need the high level of service and the ones that need the okay level of service, even if the OpEx model or the as a service model was more expensive per unit, which we're not saying it is, I would have saved you a significant amount of money. So that's a simple example of us going in and saying, I'm not just going to quote everything or we just have a bot do that. I'm actually going to go in and help you fit this to how you use it. Does that make sense?
It totally, I mean, it resonates 100% with me and maybe several, right? Is that many times we go and make a high purchase item. And if we just want somebody just to, you know, whatever, place the order for us, if somebody took the time to ask us the why and really get curious and understand what we're looking to do with it and what's our goal, and then finding a better solution is something that's going to not only work more efficiently, help us accomplish those goals a lot faster or accelerate those goals, but then of course save us money and time. Then you know, talk about building that relationship, right, moving forward. Like, hey, you really took the time. You could have easily just, you know, here's my invoice, here's my, you know, whatever, I'm buying this, and you're transactional. It's now relationship. So I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's an example of we're just helping you because we live in this world. Just think about the question. You already know the answers. You just didn't think about them that way. Why did you choose to buy 500 of that? Oh, yeah. When you tell us, we kind of know the answer. This might look better. You tell us, right? Yeah. And you're always comparing. So one of the things that we've learned over the time is that we can help people generalize this. And so we talked a little bit about public cloud, which we're not saying is a bad thing. It's great for certain things, but sometimes people are force fitting things into public cloud just because that's a one direction road. And so we use the example of what does almost everybody run? Well, they run things like VMs, which is a generalized workload. They might be running VDI, they might be running databases, et cetera. And so what we've done is we've helped people look at this and say, okay, generally speaking, we can run VMs that kind of look like this profile here for about 6 cents an hour on a X as a service systems integrated infrastructure with storage compute network. And how to compare that, what do you think it will cost you in, say, public cloud? And we find that number to be north of 20 cents an hour. That's a pretty, you know, stop, hold on, let me look at this number. Are you telling me that it might be double or sometimes triple to use public cloud? How is that possible, right? And so one of the ways we illustrate that, and we're just helping people understand how this works, is that one of our partners actually has the exact same service. So we can actually compare the same service. And in a Keystone model or an X as a service model, the list price might be like $75. But if I go to Azure and I buy the exact same service with the same technology behind it, and I say Microsoft Azure, how much is it? It might be $300. If I say AWS FSx, which is the exact same service that Azure was selling, it might be $250 to $300. And so that alone is this, wait a minute, so what I'm seeing here is putting super high performance enterprise data in a public cloud could be more expensive. It's like, yes, and therefore, just putting and lifting and shifting workloads into a public cloud could be more expensive. Make sense?
Yeah, it does. And actually, I was about to ask this question, you know, can you give us some more like examples of how this, you know, plays out in different industries? So you read my mind.
Yeah, let me give you 3 quick examples. And many of you who want to talk to your peers at these organizations, one of them is a financial. they're very conservative, and they have a stated goal from the top down that they're going to move 5,000 applications to a public cloud. Now, in the process of trying to figure that out, we said, okay, how would this work for some of the stuff you still have on premises? They said, okay, great. I'm going to put that on a 1-year contract, because at the end of the year, maybe I'll have move stuff, et cetera, et cetera. What we find is they're in their 3rd or 4th year now, and they're expanding. And now they're starting to say, you know what, maybe, because I just saw what you just showed me on the slide before, the cost of public cloud, maybe I'm not in such a rush to do that. Let's extend some of these contracts to 5 years. Let's start adding my compute, and let's start moving this to other areas. Another company, a manufacturer that probably everybody's heard of, had a massive commitment to public cloud. Matter of fact, was one of the largest AWS consumers of a certain type of database, et cetera. But was starting to realize, as Taylor pointed out, maybe this wasn't as perfect as we thought. Maybe cost had some negative impact. They started going back and saying, you know what, this is a complement. I'm not saying I'm not going to do public cloud. I'm saying I'm going to complement that. Started doing storage as a service. Started with some of their corporate data, a couple petabytes. Started to now come back and say, I'm going to double down. I'm going to do all 50 of my plants worldwide, et cetera. And the third company, very topical, is a technology company in semiconductors. They absolutely never had any intention of going to public cloud. It doesn't work for them, but they wanted that experience. We kind of went through it. They started thinking about this for certain things, and now they've expanded to their worldwide footprint. And it's a massive environment, et cetera. And they're expanding it into their compute, their hosting, their networking, and multiple types of storage. Make sense?
It looks good. Yeah, let's talk about what are some things that is relevant to organizations.
So Taylor, why don't you talk a little bit? Oh, yeah. Why don't you take this one?
Yeah. So there's upcoming events, right? When you talk about compelling events, it's you're in your 4th year, 5th year warranty or maintenance contract on your infrastructure. Right. As we know, the more the legacy technology, right, ages out, the more technical debt, the more patching, the more potential options for breach are going to happen, and that technical debt continues to grow and compound over time, right? So rather than saying, hey, I'm just going to renew, let's have a conversation about what's going on. Let's assess your environment and say, maybe it is a right time to move to a consumption model, and using that renewal window as kind of that event to kind of trigger those conversations is a good thing to look at, right? If you want to renew, that's fine, but ultimately there is a reason for us to go and look at that. And then we can also look at this over time, right? If you've got multiple environments and multiple timelines related to your infrastructure, we can also look ahead, right? A year out, 2 years out, and say, okay, you've got some other stuff coming up for renewal 6 months from now. Why don't we build a plan to layer that into the consumption model program, if you will, right? Are you going to stand up a new project, right? Hey, I've got a new application I'm trying to build. That makes a great case for a POC that you can then use that to say internally, hey, this is working really well for us. We can control our costs. We can do a lot better capacity planning because I get, quite frankly, a daily view of my consumption, right? And it creates that internal support as well for that organization, so that as we continue to build this out, we might expand into compute, we might expand into networking, right? But there's definitely some trigger points here that are going to be less disruptive than just trying to come in midterm and do a rip and replace, right? So we want to make sure we're not disruptive to your organization or infrastructure, but leverage these events that are coming up as a way to transition the organization. And then lastly, we'll just kind of jump into managed services, okay? When you look at an as a service model, there's a few different ways you can do this, right? There's OEM programs out there that can help you manage this. They can manage it for you. They retain the title of the product, right? So they're going to make sure that they're guaranteeing those SLAs. They're making sure that there's warranty associated with that, right? Break fix, all of those types of things. But there's also options, right, where maybe the client wants to manage it, okay? Or maybe the client doesn't want to manage it anymore and they want to get out of the so-called data center business. Insight can come in here and manage a multi-OEM environment if that's what we have in there. And there's different levels of management, right? We can have a reactive approach, right, where we're just taking those calls when something breaks. And there's also your proactive motion. So as we kind of let this slide build out, right, you've got your essential services, and let's say you've got a multi-OEM environment. Okay, we'll take that first call and we'll go through that environment to understand what's broken, right? What's covered under.
And what's amazing about this, Tyler, is you saw the logos. They all agree that we can be the first call for all of them. So they all have different procedures of how you would ask them for support, but they've all agreed to let us be the funnel to them.
Yep, and we've even gone through some third-party audits to tell the OEMs that yes, we can and do have the capabilities to support this for you, right? You go up the stack, right? Advanced. This is your proactive, right? As organizations look at their internal network admins or data center admins and say, hey, you know what? I need them focused on more strategic initiatives and objectives. I don't need them necessarily monitoring, looking at patch management applications, security, et cetera. Insight can do that again across that multi-OEM environment, or if it's a single OEM environment, and manage that on your behalf, right? And again, this is all baked into the same term as the product is as a service, right? It comes as part of your monthly bill. It's all incorporated, so you see everything on a monthly basis.
And what's great about that is I talk to clients. Some organizations lead with, I have to manage your environment. Which infrastructure do you need? And we're actually kind of reversing that. We're saying, how do you want to consume your infrastructure? The default is we'll help you support and integrate it. The option is we will take a proactive role. And we see companies start to look at it that way and say, oh, I think I'd like to integrate you as part of my team. And that's what advanced is.
Yep. And again, it goes back to making sure our clients understand what options are available to them, right? We don't need to do all of this. We would certainly love to do that on your behalf. To your point, Kent, it's flexible, and that's the point, right? We want this to be flexible so that you can pick and choose and build that building blocks of how you want to manage and structure your environment moving forward, right?
Wow. I mean, just to kind of close what I'm seeing from the outside perspective, it's just the fact that just hearing the word options, so many times when you said Kent perfectly is, this is the way it is how we do it, and that's it. There's really no wiggle room. There's no like, hey, well, we're different than most organizations, or we run it this way. All right, well, let's hear it out. What are the options that you can take that are going to be more effective and efficient, but also security wise, right? Some clients may, want to own or do things their way just because of the way, they want to protect their assets or whatever the reason is. We can be flexible with that, which is awesome.
That is a great point, because I may want to consume immediately, but it may take me a little while for you to go through my security procedures for you to do active management. That is very common.
And then I guess we can just close it out since we're coming up on time. Now, these are our sponsors. You saw most of them on our portfolio of as a service offerings. But these are our horses we're going to battle with at the moment, right? If you will. Obviously, AMD and Intel are a big part of these organizations as well. But just want to say thank you to our sponsors. But also, as you guys review this information, if you have any additional questions, there'll be some resources for you guys to reach out to. But definitely looking forward to learning more about your environment, your challenges, and the outcomes you guys are looking to deliver, and how a consumption model might be a good fit for that.
Yep. And we're about less than 5 minutes to go. If there's any questions, there's still time. We'd be happy to answer any questions that come through. Maybe I'll have time for one, maybe two. But as we're waiting for any of those to come through, I guess, Kent, I want to close out with you, and then, of course, Tyler. But if you were to sum this all up, and I love to kind of put you on the spot here, what would you say, like, overall, if you were to summarize everything we just talked about today, and if there's one thing that everybody should take away from today, what would that one thing be?
I hope this was educational for organizations. We don't go in and saying we know this is for you. We definitely see that they're probably pretty comfortable with how you do CapEx purchases of things, and they've probably started to learn what public cloud is. And most of the times when we present this directly to a client and say we can help you build this strategy and figure out where it fits, they actually thank us, say it was a great use of their time. So hopefully we found this is a great use of your time. Many times you just say, wow, I didn't know this existed. I got to call Bob over in finance and so over in infrastructure, and we're here to follow up. So hopefully this was informative.
All right, thank you. Tyler, how about yourself? If you were to sum it up, what's the biggest takeaway that someone should take away?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kent really nailed it, right? Is we're not going to come in here and this is going to be our go-to-market strategy and all we're going to do is consumption models, right? It's an option, right? And we want to make sure that our clients are aware of what options they have available to them. And we're here to help you get to the right fit of those options, right? If it's CapEx, great. If it's consumption models, great. If it's expanding your cloud footprint, your public cloud footprint, that's okay too, right? But we want to make sure that we're in a position to provide you with the information to make an informed decision on how you move forward with your infrastructure needs, right?
Awesome, awesome. Well, once again, thank you both for sharing and giving us some insight on, X as a service. So with that, again, here from Insights, thank you for your time and your participation. We'll see you next time.